These days, it's common knowledge that hitchhiking or picking up hitchhikers can be a very dangerous and risky practice. However, while it's heavily discouraged now, there once was a time when hitchhiking was very common and people had few qualms about using it as a form of travel. Unfortunately, creepy tales like these are the reason people are now more aware of the dangers of hitchhiking. These stories wound up ending in mysterious disappearances, tragic deaths, and even brushes with the supernatural. It takes a very brazen killer to abduct and murder two separate women at two separate locations at two separate times on the same night. But that's exactly what happened in 1982 near the town of Breckenridge, Colorado. At the time, Breckenridge was known as a safe community, so hitchhiking was pretty much a daily occurrence for many of its residents. On the evening of January 6th, 29-year-old Bobby Jo Oberholzer phoned her husband, Jeff, to let him know she was hanging out with friends at a local pub and would get a ride home. Bobby never arrived. Jeff went searching for her the next morning and eventually found his wife's body in a remote field. Bobby had been shot to death. Curiously, an orange sock that did not belong to her was found nearby. 6 months later, the body of another missing woman, 21-year-old Annette K. Schnee, was discovered in a wooded area, 21 kilometers from where Bobby was found. Annette had been sexually assaulted and shot to death. She also happened to be wearing the matching orange sock from Bobby's murder scene. It's believed that the same perpetrator had picked up Bobby and Annette at different points throughout the evening while they were hitchhiking and murdered them. Annette's orange sock was likely left behind in the killer's vehicle and somehow fell out at the location Bobby was murdered. Jeff Oberholzer was initially considered a suspect since his business card was found in Annette's wallet. However, this turned out to be an odd coincidence. Jeff had picked up Annette hitchhiking on a previous occasion and given her his card. Years later, Jeff was officially cleared as a suspect, but the orange sock murders remain unsolved. One of the most popular ghost stories is the urban legend of the Vanishing phantom hitchhiker, where a motorist picks up a hitchhiker who mysteriously vanishes without explanation. A particularly enduring version of this tale involves a ghostly hitchhiker from North Carolina known as Lydia the Vanishing Lady. The story goes that on a rainy night in 1923, a young woman named Lydia traveled to Raleigh to attend a dance with her boyfriend. The couple was driving home to High Point on Highway 70 when they collided with another car at a narrow underpass. Lydia was killed instantly and happened to be wearing a white evening gown that night. Ever since then, there have been numerous sightings of a female hitchhiker at that location wearing that exact outfit. One notable sighting involved a motorist named Burke Hardison. He was driving near the underpass one night when he saw a woman in a white evening gown signaling for help. Hardison picked her up, and the frantic woman said she needed to get home to High Point since her mother would be worried. She provided her home address, but when Hardison arrived at the house, the girl completely vanished. Nonetheless, Hardison decided to go knock on the door. A woman answered. After hearing Hardison's story, she told him that her daughter, Lydia, had been killed in an accident at the underpass. Apparently, Hardison was not the first person who had shown up at Lydia's house to describe this experience. While the story sounds like a folk tale, researchers have uncovered a death certificate of a 19-year-old High Point girl named Lydia, who died in a car accident on December 31st, 1923. And so, the legend of Lydia, the Vanishing Lady, continues to live on. In July 1973, 15-year-old runaway Mary Ellen Jones went to the Fort Lauderdale police with a horrifying story. She had been hitchhiking with her 16-year-old boyfriend Mark Matson when they were picked up by a middle-aged man calling himself Eric. Eric took the young couple to his home, but then forced them to perform sex acts at gunpoint while he took photographs. At one point, Mark made a grab for Eric's gun, but was shot 3 times. Mary was then held captive for the next 24 hours. She was chained up and repeatedly raped inside a makeshift soundproof torture chamber. Surprisingly, Eric decided to let Mary go, but warned her not to share her story. Nonetheless, Mary went to the police, but after contacting the girl's mother and learning that Mary was a known pathological liar, they completely disbelieved her story. Days later, residents in a suburban Miami neighborhood became suspicious when they noticed that one of their neighbors, a 44-year-old building inspector named Albert Brust, had been sitting outside in a lawn chair for 2 straight days and did not even move when a thunderstorm hit the area. They soon discovered that Brust was dead. He had taken his own life by drinking chocolate milk laced with cyanide. A search of Brust's house soon uncovered some horrible secrets. The remains of Mark Matson's dismembered body were found encased behind a slab of concrete inside a shower stall. A further search uncovered Brust's hidden torture chamber, proving that Mary Ellen Jones's story was completely true. Brust's journal was also found, containing his fantasies about holding a girl captive as his sex slave. In his last entry, Brust expressed immense disappointment with the actual experience, motivating his decision to end his life. During the summer of 1952, 10-year-old Wyoming resident Connie Smith was attending Camp Sloan in Salisbury, Connecticut. On the morning of July 16th, Connie had a violent altercation with some other campers, leaving her with a bloody nose. Connie then said she was heading to the dispensary to return an ice pack, but she decided to leave the camp instead. Several witnesses reported Connie asking for directions to the town of Lakeville, about half a mile away. She was last seen holding out her thumb to hitchhike on US Route 44 before she completely vanished. Camp counselors didn't notice that Connie was missing until they found the ice pack inside her tent that afternoon. Connie's grandfather was governor of Wyoming at the time and organized an extensive search campaign, but no trace of her was found. It was believed that Connie had become homesick at the camp and was trying to leave to visit her parents, but neither of them ever saw her. In 1958, hunters in Arizona found the skeletal remains of an unidentified young girl who would be known as Little Miss X. 4 years later, the Connecticut State Police received an anonymous letter claiming that Little Miss X was Connie Smith. Little Miss X's teeth were soon compared with Connie's dental records, but the results were inconclusive. In recent years, Connie's surviving relatives have submitted their DNA for a comparison, but unfortunately, Little Miss X's remains can no longer be found. After more than 60 years, Connie Smith's fate remains a mystery. On June 12, 1982, 22-year-old Marty Shook left his mother's home in Sparks, Nevada, to travel to Colorado. He was planning to hitchhike to reach his destination. 2 days later, a fly fisherman discovered Marty's nude body near Daniels Canyon in Wasatch County, Utah. He was shot in the back of the head with a .38 caliber pistol. Most disturbingly, Marty's manhood had been removed and were missing from the scene. The case would remain cold until 1989, when authorities connected it to the murder of another hitchhiker the previous year. On August 19, 1981, the nude body of 30-year-old Wayne Riffendiefer was found in a wooded area near Williamsburg, Pennsylvania. Like Marty Shook, he had been shot in the back of the head, and his manhood was removed and never found. The two victims physically resembled each other, and ballistic tests would eventually determine that they had both been shot with the same .38 caliber weapon. Authorities also looked into the possibility that these two murders were connected to another unsolved homicide. On November 24, 1986, the nude body of 26-year-old hitchhiker Jack Andrews was found at a rest stop in Litchfield, Connecticut. Even though he had not been shot and the cause of death was never determined, he displayed the same missing body parts as the aforementioned hitchhikers. His nipples were also removed and both legs had been severed at mid-thigh. While the same person may have been responsible for all three murders, they remain unsolved. These are only a handful of the cases of missing and murdered hitchhikers, and I may choose to cover some more in a future video. Hitchhiking can be inherently dangerous. Getting into a vehicle with a complete stranger absolutely comes with some risks. Have you ever had a creepy or dangerous encounter while hitchhiking? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Until next time, stay safe out there.